when we're born, we're not born with fears the way we have them now. There's only two fears that typically a child or an infant or a baby is fearful of: loud noises, and they fear falling off the bed or falling. And so naturally, that's what babies fear. That's what statistics say. But as we grow older, what we do is we accumulate all types of fears that we've learned over years. We've progressed in our fears. We begin to start being fearful of new things. How many of us have feared dark rooms maybe when you got a little older outside of being a baby? You know, you were scared of the boogeyman, right? Or maybe you were scared of spiders when you were young. Well, I don't know. I'm still scared of spiders, right? Or maybe thunderstorms. You want to run to the room with your parents because of the thunderstorm. I heard of a story of two siblings, two individuals, brothers and sisters. They were arguing one time. They were debating about who was more fearful. One of them, the sister, said that she was fearful of when the door is cracked. If the door is cracked, then whoever's behind that door can actually jump out. So if there's a cracked door in the room, she always closes the door, right? And he's like, that is totally irrational. That's an irrational fear. Well, he begins to start speaking of his rational fear of when his hand or leg is hanging off the bed. He doesn't like it to be there because whoever's under that bed can actually kind of like grab his leg and pull him up under there. And so when he would go to the bathroom at night, he would naturally jump over the bed and run to the bathroom. And then when he came back, he would jump back over and lay back in the bed. And so there's some people, I don't know if you are like this, that you don't like going into a bathroom with closed shower curtains. Because whoever was under that bed just might be in the shower. And so you might have to, open the shower door like this, just ready to give them one. And just in case whoever's hiding in that shower, you're going to get a stiff jab from me if you keep hanging out in my shower. And so you may be fearful of things like that. Or maybe you're very fearful like me when I was growing up. I don't know if you are like this. I needed a nightlight. I had a little Donald Duck with the nose that lit up because if that light wasn't on, I just couldn't have the door closed and I wouldn't go to sleep and close my eyes because I was scared. So many of us have fears that we've learned over time. And I want to go over some common fears that typically people have accumulated or we've acquired. And so life's most common fears, one of them we're going to go through and we're going to talk, and then we're going to go ahead and look at God's word, and we're going to shine God's word on these areas because these are fearful things of us. Some of us fear loss. You may fear a loss. You have the fear of loss, losing someone that's important. You may fear losing your spouse. You may fear losing your kids. Maybe you fear losing, your job or your financial security because you just don't know what's going to happen if I don't have the job, so you fear loss. Or some of us fear losing control of a situation. If we don't have control, then I'm kind of fearful because I don't know what's going to happen, and so I fear the loss of control or losing my kids. How many of us today can confess of sometimes we fear losing control? We're just going to look at this right fast. We fear losing control. You may not be that one, but you may be like me. This is the one that I struggle from. Fear of failure. All right? You kind of fear losing control, some of us, but then others, we fear failing. I know I can check this box off if we were taking notes and we were checking boxes, because the feel of inadequacy or being inadequate to do something, so we want to ensure victory before doing it. Before I start, I want to make sure that I actually win. I want to make sure this thing is fixed so I don't fall short. And so maybe you want to start a business, or maybe you want to start a career, or maybe you want to go back to school and get that degree, or go ahead and finish up and get your master's or bachelor's. And some of us, we may be challenged by the fear of failure. You know, you may fear, the failure of starting something and not finishing. Many of us, we may fear getting involved in serving because, hey, maybe I'll quit like I've done in the past. So maybe I don't want to get in children's ministry, or maybe I don't want to, start serving in the youth department or the Spanish services because I fear failure. I just don't know how it's going to turn out. I can say I check this box because sometimes I fear that, man, maybe my health will fail me before all the stuff that God has shown me ahead of us. I hope I'm healthy enough to be able to carry this out, because it's a whole bunch. When I look out a month, when I look out a year, when I look out 5 years down the line, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much, God, you want me to do. I hope you keep me healthy to be able to carry this out. It's one that I can check off that box. And so how many of us can say that we've been paralyzed by the fear of failure? Some of us can say, hey, I fear failing sometimes. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And so one of the things is when you feel failure, you're paralyzed. You won't step out there because you feel as if I do, I just may lose. Another one is possibly a fear of rejection. Some guys right now, don't look next to you, but he wants to ask you out, but he fears being rejected. Don't look. He wants to take you out for a cup of coffee. But he is scared. If he said, will you go out with a cup of coffee? And she's like, why would I do that? He's scared. He's fearful. Or some of us fear our spouse is going to leave us, reject us. She's no longer going to want to be with us anymore. He's no longer going to want to be with us. Maybe we gained a little weight. Maybe we don't look the same way when we first said I do. Or maybe, you feel like you're getting old and there's more attractive people than you. And so maybe you fear your spouse may reject you. Or how about fearing your kids getting older and you're not cool anymore? Remember when you used to be cool? They're like, oh, man, my mom's cool. Now they're like, what? Like, you are so behind. Maybe you fear your kids rejecting you because of the simple fact you're not as cool as you used to be or you thought you were. Some of us, we begin to start feeling rejected, so we begin to do things that we normally would not do. We start fixing ourselves up in a way so people will be attracted to how we are, so we won't be rejected. We start acting a certain way around people because we want to be accepted, because we fear rejection. How many of us can go through life fearing being our authentic self? That's what we're doing when we fear being rejected. We're really fearing being our authentic self. Being who we really are, because if we are who we really are, maybe they won't like me, But the fact of the matter is God only blesses you. He only anoints you. And so some of us fear rejection. Others fear the unknown, right? Many of us ask ourselves what we're going to do if this takes place. What if I get sick? What if my elderly mother died? What if I get cancer? And some of us, because we don't know what's ahead of us, we begin to start being fearful of the unknown. Oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to take place next month. I can't control that. And I'd like to try for that new job, but I just don't know if they'll hire me. What's going to happen in the future? Some people stay stuck in bad situations, bad abusive relationships, because they fear if they get out of this relationship, would someone even want them? So they stay in an abusive, verbal abusive, physically abusive, emotional, and mentally abusive relationship because they fear getting out of it, because if I get out of it, would another guy even want me? Would another woman even want me? I like to try for that new job. I'd like to try a new relationship. What's going to happen in the future? Some people say, life is going great right now, but I know something bad is going to happen. It's going too good. It's going too good. It's going too good. Something bad on it, because we just don't know what's going to happen in the future. So we begin to start fabricating this storyline. It has to get bad because it's just too good. How many of you can say, I'm afraid many times of the unknown? How many of you can say, I'm afraid of all four? Well, I can tell you right now, I'm afraid of you. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. But so many of us battle with fear in life, and we're we go through life living afraid, paralyzed. But I want to give you a truth that God speaks in his word in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. It says, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of sound mind. Come on, help me say, God has not given us a spirit of fear. Come on, say it again. God has not given. Let me tell you something. Fear is not from God. You got to get that. Fear is not from God. You got to get that in your spirit. This is not from God. God is not giving you a spirit of fear. That's from the enemy. That's from the devil. That's from your flesh. It's not a condition. It's not hereditary. It's not from your family. It's not because you have this mental problem. You need to take medicine. It's none of that. It's from the devil. We need to start calling it what it is and stop saying it's something else. Until we identify that, we will approach this wrong and we'll never get victory. Because we'll be approaching it from a stance of psychology or sociology. We won't look at it from a stance of spirituality. We won't look at it for what it truly is. It's from the devil. God has not given you a spirit of fear. He hasn't. It's not from God. It's not from God. You got to get that. Because fear is not from God, I quit living in fear. I quit it. You can quit it. Say, I quit it. It's not from God. Because it's not from God, you can say, I quit living in fear. Some people say fear is the opposite of faith. I beg to differ. I see it from a different perspective. I disagree. Technically, fear is faith. Technically. It's just faith in the wrong things. So what is fear? What is fear? Because most of us, we think fear is the opposite of faith, but it's not the opposite of faith. Fear is being faithful. You are just being faithful, or we are being faithful in the wrong things. So what is fear? Get this. Fear is placing faith in the what ifs. Fear is placing faith in the what ifs. Most people that are living in fear don't put their faith in what if something great happens, besides those guys that like buy lottery tickets and stuff like that. Like, in gamble, they what if I win $1 million? That's another topic though. But, they believe that what if something great happens? What if I spend this $5 and win $1 million? But most people are, what if I'm single forever? What if I lose my job? What if my health goes bad? What if my spouse cheats on me? What if my kids get hurt? What if I get into a wreck? What if? We do it all the time. God speaks and we say, what if? What if? There was another individual like that. His name was Moses. Moses was actually called by God because Moses had been raised up with the Egyptian family, with their cultures, with their belief system, with everything that they'd done. But he was a Hebrew. He actually was an Israelite. He was one of God's people. And so God plucked him out one day, and he wanted to talk to him. And so God, when he wants to talk to you and I, he always does something to get our attention. Many times when he wants to speak to us, contradictory things that are contradictive take place. Let me explain. This guy walks up on a bush that's burning, but it's not consumed. Like it's just burning and it's not burning it up. You're like, hold up. This don't make sense. And so many times when God wants to speak to us, he wants to speak to us through ways that are contradictory, things that don't even add up. It don't make sense with our human mind. So he gets his attention. And so he says, Moses answered. He said, okay, I want you to go take these people and bring them to a place where they can worship me. And his statements was, Moses answered this. Moses said, what if they do not believe me? What if? The key word, if we can highlight that, what if? What if they do not believe me or listen to me and say the Lord did not appear to you? What if? Immediately, God speaks, and then immediately he says, what if? God says something. Many times God said, you're more than a conqueror. But what if, I get defeated? You're more than an overcomer. What if I fall and triple and stumble? You can do all things through Christ. Well, what if, I can't? And so we do it all the time. God speaks, and then we have this notion to say, what if? So faith is fear is putting our faith in the what ifs. Faith does exist with fear. Faith does exist. Some people say, well, it's the opposite. Faith is where fear is, faith is not. But that's not true. You're having faith. You're just using your faith in the wrong thing. Faith in the what ifs. What if this happens? And so fear is placing faith in the what ifs. Ask yourself, why does my what ifs matter? You got to ask yourself, why does my what ifs, why does your what ifs matter? Ask yourself that. I want to show you two thoughts that is going to be life-changing for you. It's going to rock your world. Why does your what ifs matter? The first thing is what you fear reveals what you value the most. So if I'm saying, what if my wife leaves me? It's because I value my wife and I don't want to lose her. What if my child gets sick? Well, it's because I value my child and I don't want him to get sick. What if I lose my job? Well, I value being secure financially, so I don't want to lose my job. What if I get sick? Well, I value my health. I don't want to get sick. What if I don't fulfill the plan that God has for me? Well, I value the plan of God, so guess what? I fear that because I value that. My job, my career, my money. I value that, and because I value that, it makes you fear losing it. What you fear reveals what you value the most. The other truth is what you fear reveals what you trust, where you trust God the least. Okay? So I fear losing my wife because of the simple fact, I value her the most, but also it's obvious that if I fear losing her, it's obvious I don't trust God with her. Losing your spouse, not trusting God with your marriage. That means you do not trust God with your marriage. Something bad's going to happen to my kids. Well, I don't trust God with my children then. Oh, my God, my job, my career, my finance. What that means is I'm not trusting God to secure me financially and stabilize me. If I fear losing anything, that means that I do not trust God in that area. You may say, I do trust God, but fear reveals you are trusting in the what ifs. It's not trusting God, it's trusting in the what ifs. You are trusting in the what ifs more than the who is. The what ifs instead of the who is God. What has God revealed to me? What you are saying is, God, I don't know if you are good enough to sustain my marriage. What I'm saying is, God, you're the God of the universe, but I just don't know if you're powerful enough to keep my family. What I'm saying is, God, you don't have the ability to sustain me financially if I begin to start fearing God, not financially securing me. So remember, the what ifs reveals two things. One, what your fear reveals is what you value the most. That's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But also, it reveals where you trust God the least. I want to ask you to do something. I want you to, because what you fear reveals where you trust God the least. Be honest, be transparent, be real with yourself. Go ahead and fill in this blank. I'm not trusting God with, if you're taking notes, just go ahead and write. I'm not trusting God with, and fill in that blank, my marriage. I'm not trusting God with my future. I'm not trusting God with my financial status. I'm not trusting God with my family, my calling. I'm not trusting God with my kids, my spouse, my future, with my aging parent. Put it on paper. Own that. You need to own that. You need to go ahead and identify that, because until you identify it, it's not to be swept under the rug and act as if it don't exist. What we have to do is we have to acknowledge it. We have to own it. I will put it down. Because if you don't put it down, you never will be able to identify what your fears are. I remember 2014. We had just opened the church December the 22nd, 2013. We opened up Metanoia, and me and my wife, we were living in Alcrana Barrio because we were the home parents there. And I began to start getting very tired, and I would take naps, and my wife knows I'm not a nap type guy. Once I'm up, and I'm on the move. And so I started taking naps, and she was like, what's going on? And so we went to the doctor, and then they diagnosed me diabetes. I was a diabetic, and so, I moved on like nothing was happening. But then one day I was in the shower, and fear hit me. Like, this is a disease, isn't it? Like, it just hit me, Like, the doctor talked to me and had a little time with me, and that wasn't enough, It was like, okay, all right, cool, all right. I went on with my life. But about a week later or so, I said, man, I got a disease. And to be honest, I started getting scared. I said, man, what about my wife, and who's going to take care of her? She'd resigned of being a teacher for years and to follow the call of God on our lives, and what's going to happen with the calling that you have for me? And tears start rolling down my cheek. And I began to start thinking about my future and about what God was going to, it paralyzed me. Sickness. What if I don't fulfill the call of God on my life? What if I'm not here to sustain my marriage? What if I'm not here for Elena? What if I don't accomplish what God created me to accomplish? It revealed what I valued the most, but it revealed also where I trust God the least. It showed me I value my wife. I value what God created me to do, but God was showing me you need to go deeper. You need to go deeper in order to learn how to trust me with not only your marriage, but the future of your calling. So, how do you face the what-ifs of fear? How do you face them? Because they do exist. It's real. It's a reality. It's truthful. It's something that everyone deals with in life. We all went through. We do fear losing things. We do fear rejection. We do fear the unknown. We actually fear numerous of things. And some of us still fear spiders. Others may fear failure. But the fact of the matter is we do have fear. So what do? Well, the first thing we do is we acknowledge our fears and choose to trust God. You have to acknowledge it. Because many times we act like we want to sweep it under the rug. We act like it does not exist. But if you don't acknowledge it, it's very difficult for you to address it. It's very difficult for you to overcome something you don't identify. Let's go ahead and just make it simple. If someone's working on a vehicle or working on something, under the hood of your car, they have to identify what the problem is before they can actually fix it. There's no way. It's called troubleshooting. And you have to be able to identify what the problem is before you can fix it. And so you have to acknowledge this. Acknowledge it. Make a conscious choice. Be intentional about trusting God. And there's a story about a guy named King David. King David was anointed king. When he was anointed king, there was still another guy in charge named Saul, and he was the king. And so he got jealous of David because David, either he was fine. I knew he could dance for sure, right? He could dance, because he danced all the way out his clothes, so he had, he could dance. And so he was very victorious. He killed the giant called Goliath, and what happened was Saul started getting jelly. And so this is the most powerful man in that region, and he says, we're going to go kill him. And what happens is we read it like it's nothing. But just think if the POTUS, just think if the President of the United States said, all hands on deck, we're going to go kill that guy. We're going to go kill that girl. And everyone's chasing after him. I think we just read it like a story or a comic book. But just think if, maybe you're out of the country and there's a king or queen or whoever's ruling, they use all the power they have to chase after you. And you're running around. And so surely he was fearful. This is what he says in Psalm, King David. Psalm chapter 56, verse 2 through 4, he says, my slanderers pursue me all day long. Many are attacking me in their pride. Look, he's honest with his situation. When I am afraid, I will trust in you. He says, when I am afraid. He didn't say, I'm never going to be afraid. He says, when I am afraid, meaning it comes into my heart because, man, this king has everybody chasing after me. And when it comes into my heart, when I'm afraid, I will trust in you. Meaning I'm going to be intentional about trusting what you said in your word. In God, verse 4 says, in God whose word I praise, in God I trust. And then he makes a proclamation. He makes a declaration. Can we all say it together? I will not be afraid. He says, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to be afraid of losing out. This is the part that gets me. He says, what can mortal man do to me? That's when everything shifted right there. The conclusion, he says, what can mortal man do to me? Well, I can answer that question. They could kill you, buddy. They could kill you. I mean, they're after you. I'm sure they don't have, boomerangs or anything. They have swords. They have arrows. They have shields. They have all these things that's going to attack you. But he's not saying, can they physically harm me? He shifted it from the temporal to the eternal. He says, yes, they may can harm me physically, but you know what? What can they really do to my spirit? What can they do to my soul? What can they do to me? He shifted the entire, conversation with God to God, you're in charge of everything. They can't do anything you don't allow them to do. They can't do anything. And this is beautiful. He acknowledges that, you know what? Hey, this is my worst what if. This is my worst one. What if Saul finds me in this cave? What if he comes and puts a javelin through my chest? What if he comes and take a sword and cut my head off? What if they find me? What if this is the worst fear he could ever have? What if they come and kill me? He says, I'm going to still put my trust in you. He says, I'm going to trust you, oh God. No matter what, I trust in you. Let me tell you, the further I get from God, the more my what ifs is relevant. The further you get from God, the closer he starts pressing in. First he started out, I am afraid. And then he finally concluded, I will not be afraid. Why? The closer he was pushing in, his what ifs didn't matter no more. The more he was striving into God's faith, the closer he got to God, the more his what ifs really didn't matter. The more his fears did not matter at all. It did not matter what they were saying. In light of God's goodness, his what ifs just didn't matter anymore. So acknowledge your worst what if or fear and choose to trust God. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge what it is. I fear losing. I fear rejection. I fear the unknown. Whatever it is, identify it. Put a big light on that thing. Don't act like it don't exist. Acknowledge it and then press in.
Don't overpay for.
The fact of the matter is the thing that we fear the most reveals what we value. The thing that we fear the most reveals how much we trust God the least. And God is wanting to identify that. God is wanting us to identify that and show us that. And so the second thing I want you to do is seek God until he takes away your fears. Seek God in his word, seek God in prayer, seek God in fellowship, seek God with fellowship with believers, have other people pray for you. Seek God. You have to seek God until it's gone. Seek him day in and day out until your fears are gone. We can't be lazy Christians no more. Thinking, those now lay me down to sleep, pray my Lord, my soul you keep prayers. Jesus wept prayers. Those a little shorter. The shortest thing, we're going to have to press in because it's invading our heart, and we're going to have to press in because, watch this, the further you are from God, the more relevant your fears are. They get big. And so look what he says here in Psalm 34:4. Same God, David, he says, I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. All my fears, he delivered me. He said, I sought him, and he answered me. Now, some of us, we like to have excuses. We like to go, and we set ourselves up to be bitter and upset at God. We'll seek God for, he didn't answer. I prayed for 5 minutes. No, he didn't. Well, I tried it for a week. No, it just didn't work. It's like, no, press in. Anything else, we'll set a lot of time to dedicate towards it. It's not like you ate one time and say, I ate once. No, it wasn't good. I just didn't. No, I'm through eating. I'm never going to eat again. Some of us may need to do that, right? But think about this verse. If you seek God with all your heart, there will be no fear that will hold you hostage anymore. God has the power to move every fear. God has the power to move every fear. There was a time in my Christian life, in my walk, where I didn't believe this. There was a season in my life where I would have told you, I'm not sure if that's possible. I'm not sure if that's true. I remember being under the discipleship of my pastor, and right about 6 years in, he was supposed to get me to my destiny. God was going to use him to launch me out to go open up a ministry to help out, and help out people that were in need, right? And so he died of cancer, and fear started invading my heart. And God began to start telling me, where's your faith at? Is it in him or in me? Where's your faith? And I remember he spoke something in my life in Psalm. He says, remember the word to your servant in which you made me hope. And he begins to start speaking in my life. Somehow that just lit up in the verse. And I was just reading it over and over and reminding myself, remember the word to your servant which you made me hope. I remember there was a season when Helena was having health problems. And a lot of fear was coming to my heart because remember, I value my marriage. I value my wife. And I didn't say anything to anyone. I just kept on working, kept on preaching, teaching. But in my heart, I was like, man, she was going through a lot of pain at night, and she was going to have a major surgery, and it was a big, big deal. But it was fear trying to creep up into my heart. And he was trying to show me what I valued the most, but also he was showing me where I trusted him the least. He was showing me this is where you need to step your game up. Be honest, you're scared. Some of us always want to try to play like we're tough. David said, when I am afraid, meaning when I'm scared, when I'm fearful. John Wesley, the founder of the movement of Methodist, the Methodist Church, he said, I have never known more than 15 minutes of anxiety or fear. Whenever I feel fearful emotions overtaking me, I just close my eyes and thank God that he is still on the throne, reigning over everything, and I take comfort in his control over all the affairs of my life. God comes between your fears. He can come in between your fears, or you can let your fears become between you and God. Lady named Beth Moore. She's a phenomenal teacher, phenomenal author, and she's a believer, of course. She went through a stage of fear. She said when she began to start worrying that she was going to lose her husband and he was going to die. And so she went into this conversation with God. And God was like, why are you so fearful? And she was like, because if he dies, I know I'll lock myself in a room for weeks, and I'll probably eat real bad and sleep, and I won't want to come out, and man, I'll just be in a deep depression. I just probably won't want to go on for life. He said, okay, and then? What would you do next week? I'll probably do the same thing. I wouldn't come out. I wouldn't talk to no one. I close myself off, and then he said, okay, and after that, then what do you do? I'll probably go through another week of just being depressed and just not answering any phone calls, and then God said, and then? And she said, I'll probably pull myself together and seek you with all my heart and pray, and you would get me through it, and I would be on the other side of my fear, and you would keep me. A lot of times we got to work these things all the way out to the end, because the fears is something that overwhelms us about what if? You got to turn it and flip it. Isaiah 26:3 says, you will keep in perfect peace all who trust in you, all whose thoughts are fixed on you. Everyone who fixed their thoughts on Jesus, on God the Father, pray to the Holy Spirit. Say, you know what? I am afraid. But I know you hold my world in your hands. Close your eyes and begin to just tell him my worst what ifs. I know that you are totally in control. My worst what ifs, even if they came to pass, God, I know you will work it all out. No matter what comes my way, hell or high water, you are in control. You have a great plan. You are a good God. There's no way that your goodness is going to fail me now. And so that's why you and I, we can say, I quit living in fear. Lord, we want to thank you for the opportunity to hear the shackles fall to the ground. The shackles, the things that we're shackled to, the things that we fear the most. Lord, and we can turn it and flip it and start trusting you deeper and more intimately. Seek God. Seek him. He says, I sought you, O God, and you heard me. You answered me, and you delivered me from all my fear. Everything that came into my mind, what if I lose my health? What if this pain never stops and I go to the hospital and I find out I got cancer? What if my kids go astray and begin to start being horrible and get involved in gangs? What if I never get married? What if? You can face that what if and say, you know what? You're revealing to me where I trust God the least. You're revealing what I value the most, and I do value having a relationship, so I do want to be married, but I'm going to put my trust in you, oh God. Hands lifted, hearts open. I'm going to put my trust in you, oh God. If you're here right now, if this ministered to you, if this dealt with you, if this spoke in your heart, just say, I will put my trust in you, oh God. If you're right here and you've had fear of loss and fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown, I will put my trust in you, oh God. I believe. I believe. I believe. So right now, I pray that God's glory would shine upon every person. You would see how deep and how wide and how far God's glory is, how big God is. And it'll make your fears so small. It'll make your problems so small, because God is a God that can do anything. God bless you all. You guys have a great day.